Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Chicago, Grand Rapids, Duluth, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, and Jacksonville, Florida. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. So they had an election in Venezuela. And the United States has been wanting to overthrow the government of Venezuela and control it because, well, they have more oil in Venezuela than Saudi Arabia. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's what this is all about, right? That's why we're sanctioning Venezuela. That's why we tried to overthrow their government. And that's why we recognized Juan Guaido as this is all about the capitalists want that oil. Okay, that's what this is all about. And here's Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He's going to say what a bad election it was. Watch this.
If my colleagues will indulge me for just 1 minute, I want to speak quickly to the elections that just took place in Venezuela. We applaud the Venezuelan people for their participation in the July 28th presidential election. We commend their courage and commitment to democracy in the face of repression and in the face of adversity. We've seen the announcement just a short while ago by the Venezuelan Electoral Commission. We have serious concerns that the result announced does not reflect the will or the votes of the Venezuelan people.
Boy, let me just say this. If he's so concerned about the democracy in Venezuela, wait till he finds out how his own party picked its presidential candidate. It's a real gut buster. Yeah, the party elite just installed somebody without anybody voting for her. Is that something? Yeah, okay.
It's critical that every vote be counted fairly and transparently, that election officials immediately share information with the opposition and independent observers without delay, and that the electoral authorities publish the detailed tabulation of votes. The international community is watching this very closely.
And by the way, when he says the will of the Venezuelan people, he's talking about a handful of people he installed there to bend the public will against his opponent. That's what he's talking about. Okay.
And will respond accordingly. Now.
So let's get out our decoder rings and figure out what this guy's actually saying. What he is saying is it turns out he means that actual democracy has overridden the takeover coup that he had planned over there. No wonder we're so concerned. Looks like we're going to have get a false flag going over there, at a terror event on ourselves that we blame on Venezuela, giving Iran a momentary reprieve. So this is amazing. By the way, what in the fuck is it of any of your business how Venezuela runs their country? You guys don't have any problem with dictators. You guys have not. You're in bed with most of them. This is not about any. This is about, again, us wanting to coup a government so the capitalists can come in and steal their natural resources. That's what this is about. And don't be. First of all, their election, every impartial election observer I can find says it's on the up and up. Ajamu Baraka says, I'm in Venezuela as an observer and can say with certainty that after systematic interference by anti-democratic forces in the United States, we're the ones messing with the democratic process in Venezuela. As usual. You know any history at all about the United States and South America and Central America, if any history at all, it's the United States that's doing it. The election results represented the sentiments of the people who voted. What is not being reported is the organization that took place to win. Here's another guy, Alan McLeod. He says there are over 900 foreign election observers here in Venezuela, me included. If there was anything substantial to these predictable claims, we would have seen it. So, of course, the United States is going to come out and say that the election is fraudulent. That's, of course, what they're going to do. They do it all the time, every election. Instead, it is the same story every election since 2000. The United States says it's fraudulent and a dictator. And then I say, of course, the United States government and corporate media are saying that Venezuelan's election is fraudulent because Venezuela has more oil than Saudi Arabia. And that's why the United States is constantly trying to overthrow their governments and sanctioning their economy, which is why 7 million people left Venezuela. And where do you think they came? Once again, the United States is the terrorists. Here's TJ Blade said, is that how you say his name? I don't know how to pronounce that. He says, one of the reasons we keep an outpost in Colombia, too. The plan to overthrow Venezuela and exploit its resources has been on their agenda since the 50s. He said, I started on a video compiling all the times we've attempted coups and assassinations there. It became an hour long. So then you have people like this who just buy the propaganda 100%. He says, I don't disagree with you about the U.S. foreign intervention. Okay, that's good. But you're wrong on this one. Okay. Sure. It's obvious there was fraud here. The people, my question to you is, why do you give a fuck about an election an election process in Venezuela? Because you're told to care. That's why. Because you're told to care. There was what's the African country? Somebody just got elected with 95% of the vote. We didn't say a goddamn thing about it because he's our puppet. Oh, I wish I can't remember who that was. The people of Venezuela wanted out of communism. How do you know this? How do you know this? And Maduro had his military stop voting, run off with ballot boxes, etc. From what I'm seeing. What do you mean? What are you seeing? What are you seeing? Fox News report on this? Are you seeing MSNBC's? Are you seeing the Jeff Bezos' Washington Post? The people who lied about Russiagate? At the top of, you mean those people? The people who lied about, currently lying about Ukraine, lied about Libya, lied about Iraq, lied about Syria and Iran? You mean those people?
Rwanda.
This Rwanda? This isn't just from the United States government and corporate press. Well, where is it from? So if you want to know the facts, Venezuela has voter ID. They have fingerprint ID. They have one day of voting at a designated location. They have a paper ballot trail. Electronic voting machines are not connected to the internet. Multiple audits and same-day results. U.S. elections have none of that. So you're being propagandized again. Why? Why do you even have a fucking opinion about an election happening in Venezuela? A government we've tried to overthrow a zillion times. Here we go. Here's Senator Chris Murphy.
You know, I feel like it's Groundhog Day in this committee. We've been told by the administration, frankly, multiple...
It reminds me of people who had deep emotional opinions about ivermectin. I had arguments with comedians, top of our lungs. It doesn't treat, but ivermectin is that's a horse paste. Why do you have an opinion on a medicine? Because you were told to. Same thing here. Why do you have an opinion on the Venezuelan election? Let Venezuela figure out their fucking problems. If it wasn't a good election, let them figure it out. They have way more safeguards in place than the goddamn United States, okay? So here, let's listen to what he has to
I
say.
feel like it's Groundhog Day in this committee. We've been told by the administration, frankly, multiple administrations for years, that Russia's support for Assad and Iran's support for Assad is tepid. It's fragile. It's just a matter of time before he falls. The truth of the matter is they were always willing to do more than we were in Syria to protect their interests. And that is likely the exact same case here in Venezuela. And so our policy has been misguided by fundamentally flawed assumptions from the beginning. And I have deep respect for both of you who are testifying before this committee. But we just have to be clear that our Venezuela policy over the last year and a half has been an unmitigated disaster. And if we aren't honest about that, then we can't self-correct. We have to admit that our big play, recognizing Guaido right out of the gate and then moving quickly to implement sanctions, just didn't work. It didn't. All it did was...
So he's saying, our thing to recognize an illegitimate leader of that country after we tried to do a coup and all the generals sided with the government. They didn't do, after we did that, and then we did economic sanctions on them. It didn't work. None of this is working. What does he mean by working? He means overthrowing the democratically elected government of Venezuela and installing our puppets. That's what he means by working. Why the fuck do we, again, that's just all the United States does, is meddle in other people's countries and governments. That's all we do, and that's exactly what this is.
Pardon Russia and Cuba's play in Venezuela and allow Maduro to paint Guaido as an American patsy. And a lot of us warned that this might happen.
Because he was an American patsy. You get that? That's why he was able to paint him as an American patsy, because Juan Guaido was an American patsy.
We could have used the prospect of U.S. recognition or sanctions as leverage. We could have spent more time trying to get European allies and other partners on the same page. We could have spent more time trying to talk to or neutralize China and Russia early before we backed them into a corner from which they are not moving. They are not moving.
So what he's saying is we could have strategically handled this better, so our overthrow of the Venezuelan government would have went better. That's what he's saying. We should have negotiated with China and Russia and made sure they would allow us to do what we wanted to do in Venezuela, which is overthrow their government and steal their natural resources. That's what he's talking about. That's what he's saying. This is how they talk in suit and ties and $300 haircuts. This is how they talk about creating chaos and being a terrorist organization, which is what the U.S. government is. He's talking about being a terrorist and overthrowing another country's government and bending it to our will, not the will of the Venezuelan people.
But all we did was play all our cards on day one, and it didn't work. And it's just been an embarrassing mistake after mistake since. First, we thought that getting Guaido to declare himself president would be enough to topple the regime. Then we thought
we thought if we just acknowledged and recognized an illegitimate leader who wasn't elected, that would be enough to topple their regime, meaning overthrow their government. He's just telling you what we're doing.
Aid on the border would be enough. Then we tried to sort of construct a kind of coup in April of last year, and it blew up in our face when all the generals...
We tried to construct a coup. We tried to construct a coup in Venezuela in April 2019, and it blew up in our face. He just said it. We tried to construct a coup in another country. What in the fuck? And there are people on Twitter right now, on my Twitter thread, not upset that we keep doing that, but think they should have an opinion on an election in Venezuela. You know who should have an opinion on an election in Venezuela? The people in Venezuela. The people who are the terrorists don't get to have an opinion. That's legitimate. Who gives a shit what this guy thinks or anybody else in America thinks about Venezuela's freaking election? This is all imperialism. That's all this is. Again, you're falling for it. If you believe that Antony Blinken is worried about the will of the Venezuelan people, you're a chump of the highest order, and you've learned nothing from Iraq, Libya, 20 years of Afghanistan, Syria, Ukraine. You've learned nothing.
That we're supposed to break with Maduro decided to stick with him in the end. We undermined Norway's talks last summer, and then this March we released a transition framework that frankly is almost a carbon copy of the very one that was in front of the parties last year.
So, if you have an opinion and you're upset that somehow the election in Venezuela wasn't on the up and up, you've been propagandized. That's the result of it. All of a sudden now you have an opinion about another country's election. That's up to that fucking country to worry about. I bet it involves us overthrowing their government again. I bet that's what this is all. Do you think that's where it's leading? I bet it is. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? I recently saw a video he made. I saw it. And I was shocked. He's in his 80s and he's still kicking butt and working out and staying active. He actually is. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. It actually inspired me to stay in shape. Honest. Because, you know what? I want to be in my 80s. I want to be able to still enjoy it, right? I want to be able to enjoy it. Why not? He did this by just making one change. Who did that? Chuck Norris. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing, too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger. Her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a special video, which I watched, that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/Jimmy. Or by clicking in the link below this video. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/Jimmy. And click on the link in the description below and watch the video. You won't believe how simple it is. Just a reminder that the legendary Chuck Norris is a whopping 84 years old and has more energy than me. Okay? He discovered he could create dramatic changes to his health simply focusing on 3 things that sabotage your body as we age. Watch this method and his method by clicking on the link in the description box below. That's chuckdefense.com/Jimmy. Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Chicago, Grand Rapids, Duluth, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, and Jacksonville, Florida. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.